All right, welcome into another episode of You Don't Know Jack. Another day, another show. I wasn't able to go live this morning, but we'll be back in live tomorrow morning at 11 a.m. Central, 12 p.m. Eastern. But I just wanted to get you guys on here to talk about some of the festivities of yesterday. That includes the Home Run Derby, the worst poster I've ever seen. We'll get into that, and also a profound statement coming out of MLB All-Star Weekend. So I'm super excited about it. Let's transition into the show. Thank you for joining me. Make sure to follow us on the socials at All Jacked Up Sports on Instagram, AJU Sports on X, and make sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel for the video forms of these podcasts. Thank you guys again for listening. And just a quick little snippet. I do want to start with the Home Run Derby, and this was a pretty big debate for a lot of people online yesterday, kind of just stating their opinions on the format and how ESPN covered it and all that jazz. And well, first off, the broadcast started with a very NBA All-Star-esque intro for the MLB players. They set up a stage right around second base, and they had each player introduced by Pat McAfee and another dude, and they were risen out of these platforms onto the stage. Very NBA All-Star-esque. That's what the first thought I had in mind when I was thinking about these intros. I could take it or leave it. My dad and I were watching it, and we had a really good point. You could just easily get away with having them exit the dugout. Maybe have them, dap up the other players that are there, because there's clearly other players there. So why don't try to get them, hyping up these All-Stars, similar to what the NBA dunk contest has, with the other guys sitting half court or on court side, celebrating, losing their minds. I think they could have done a little bit something like that in terms of the intros for the players. But regardless, the intros were fine. But then once we got into the actual coverage of the games, of the at-bats, that's when it kind of struggled a little bit. First off, it was off to a rough start, right? And those cameramen have the hardest job in, TV that night, trying to track these balls because it's one after the other. I don't know how many cameras they have set up back there. I would assume at least 3 to give yourself enough time to catch up with the next pitch if that goes over the wall. But also, they did a 50-50 split screen look. Half the screen dedicated to the pitch from the standard MLB baseball view on TV, and then the right view of where the ball goes. And it's usually a zoomed in look of looking up at the ball and then having it drop. That to me looked dated. I don't think we need to see the at-bat that large. I think what they could do is a picture-in-picture view of kind of maybe a look from behind, where the game camera usually is, where camera 2 is, behind, home plate, a little up in the stands. They could repeat that look, maybe make that the big look, and have, the pitch in a picture-in-picture look, because it's not as important, right? It is cool to see from that angle a couple of pitches, but I think some variety there could be, make it more engaging. But I think this answer was very simple. And there was an angle they had when it was one cameraman, and he was, he's going handheld with it, and he went behind. He was on the field, but he went behind a little bit more towards the center of, if there was a line from home plate, from, the back of the backstop all the way to center field, he was kind of maybe halfway in between that line and the batter circle, from, where he captured angles. And I think it was Cal Raleigh, who was batting, a lefty batter, or Neil Cruz, but they had a sweet angle of the pitch coming in and then him just absolutely whacking the ball to deep right field. That was an angle that's like, oh, he mashed it. And it was super cool because then they had the golf trail where that trails the ball, where you see drives in other shots. They had that tracking for these baseballs, and that made it way cooler. And so if they were to stick with that view, I think that would be very cool, right? Especially with righties versus lefty batters. You don't have to do it all the time, right? I think some shot selection spiced up a little bit with all these pitches being thrown. I think that would be, highly encouraged. Whereas, because these at bats, these rounds for these guys, especially in that first round, 3 minutes, 40 pitches, and then you get probably an additional 3 minutes again, just based off the 3 outs with the bonus out. It feels longer than it actually is. Still, I think some shot selection could, or shot variation, it could help spice it up just a little bit more. But other than that, I would say that angle they had, plus all the vibes of All-Star Weekend, this is the only event they do, besides obviously the games. Whereas NBA All-Star, the Pro Bowl for football, even hockey's changed up a little bit, and maybe we could talk about that. But I think what they do, the Home Run Derby, is maybe the best gimmick activity at All-Star Weekend of all the sports. Maybe hockey's now superseded them with, kind of their Four Nations championships that they do during All-Star break rather than the games. But still, this Home Run Derby, it's fun. You see balls get mashed. It's a fun time, especially for the fans at the games, and also some of the fans at home, right? I was sitting back thinking, oh, wouldn't it just be sweet if a Cubs player was in this? Because you want to root for your guys. And I was still rooting for, close rounds and whatnot. But still, it was missing that little something of a little home blood for me. And you saw the Braves fans get into it when Matt Olson got into it, or got up to bat. So that's one thing I would like to see in future sense, and just in terms of maybe spicing up, giving more stakes into the Home Run Derby. But that was kind of how they depicted it this year. They have changed up some of the rules from years past, and I think the biggest one is obviously going to the 40 pitches, the 3-minute timer, and then the second bonus round that you have where it's 3 outs, but if you hit one over 425, you get an additional out. And it's kind of funny, I was sitting there, and I don't remember last year's Home Run Derby too much in terms of the rules, but I remember when it was 10 outs, right? I remember when it was just a timer, you had 3 minutes, you got to go, right? And it's feeling like they're kind of mashing all these rules together, and I think it's actually made for quality rules and quality content as a viewer, right? So you get the 3 minutes and the 40 pitches. I was kind of like, oh, you only have 40 pitches? I didn't realize, about the timing there, right? I think the pitches is maybe more of your answer. Because if you date back to, a couple years ago when it was the 10 outs, you would have guys taking multiple pitches, right? And it could drag on for a while. Now, your home run numbers would probably go up, and these guys wouldn't be out of breath and just hitting absolute nukes. But at the same time, after the fourth guy goes, you're like, okay, this is kind of more of the same, right? And so for them, they're like, okay, how can we speed this up a little bit? Have them not take as many pitches. Okay, then they did the timer, and I thought the timer was good. But then you have these guys later on in the competition kind of being tired, out of breath, and they're kind of, not getting the ball over the wall. And that's obviously the last thing you want in a contest like this. It's like missed dunks in the NBA dunk contest. You don't want people to miss dunks. You don't want people miss 3-point shots in the 3-point contest, right? So then they instituted, either this year or years in past, whatever, the pitch count, right? So you only have a limited amount of pitches. So this year they have the 40 pitches plus the 3 minutes. I thought that was really good. And then they have the additional 3 outs, which you can take your time in, right? Which I thought that was great. But maybe if they were to do, okay, you have 50 pitches, right? You got to, maybe like there's a pitch clock. You got like 10 seconds, or you got like 7 seconds or 5 seconds after the ball lands, or you waste a pitch, right? Something like that, to maybe if guys want to take a 2-pitch break, they can, and then they can go back to mashing it rather than just swing. I think that could also be something, right? But at least as of right now, with the 3-minute timer, and then the second round's going to a 2-minute timer, and then the finale or the final championship going to 2 minutes as well, I think that is, kind of the best product and best rule set they have currently. I think it would be kind of cool, if they go to a hit-off that they were talking about, maybe instituting that into the final, right? Where it's like, it's almost like knockout, right? If I homer and you don't homer, then I have to homer to win, right? Or it's like if I miss a homer, but then you homer, you have a chance to win, right? I think something like that could play into it. Maybe that's what they were planning with a home run out, or a hit out, or what were they calling it? A duel, whatever. You know what I'm talking about, where it's two guys, battling. There was a chance last night, but they decided, okay, longest home run. I'm like, that's a little tacky. Just have them go up, have them do that, right? And guess what? If they're going back and forth matching home runs, that is great content, right? I don't believe I remember who it was necessarily last night. I know it was Cal Raleigh and I want to say Brent Rooker for last night that got beat. They both had like 17-ish homers, but Raleigh hit it about an inch, maybe less than an inch further, and then kind of made it tacky that way. So I'm just kind of like, I don't know if I love that. Yeah, it was Rooker, Brent Rooker, who got the shaft low key. They should have had a hit off, because then again, at the end of the day, people want to see that, right? They love seeing dunk offs. They love seeing 1v1s in that type of scenario. And I think in baseball, especially with this, if you were to do that, that would be not only viral clips if something crazy were to happen, but then it's engaging content for your fans, and obviously more people are going to tune in. Oh snap, we got a hit off coming up after the break. Make sure you tune in to the home run derby. I think that would be very cool. So overall, Cal Raleigh winning it. He's the home run leader with 36 home runs. I think he's had a great story. It was fun seeing his dad pitching and his brother catching. That was super duper cool. A little family oriented. It was a little bit of a shocker that Caminero did not win. I thought he kind of had a really nice chance as he beat Buxton 8-7 in the semifinals or the round 2. And then he had really a long break before that, but maybe, some not rust, but maybe he was able to settle down and lose some of his mojo while Cal Raleigh was, he had to go first, then he got a break, and then he had to go first again. So I think overall, successful home run derby. Yes, they have some things to fix in terms of how they present it, especially ESPN. They should have, I think once, especially during All-Star weekend, for any sport, the less serious you make yourselves, the more entertaining the product gets. Now, that goes to a certain extent, right? You don't need, NFL players playing, flag football against mascots, right? People barely watch flag football now just because it's so far from the product. But with baseball, home run derby in the game, that's really all people want. I don't think there's a demand for any other sort of game. You can maybe figure something out with stolen bases, some agility like that. The the NBA is currently having problems with the dunk contest, not having their stars play in it. They're going to have, pretty decent stars play in, the skills competition and the 3-point contest, but they're really struggling to get that, home run derby up. In this one, you're missing some of your stars in terms of your home run leaders. Like an Ohtani's not in this. You'd love to see him play a little bit. Pete Armstrong's up there in home runs this season compared to the guys that played last night in this. So, yes, you would love your stars to play, but you still got, your home run leader. You got some, James Wood out of Washington, a young star playing it. You got a Yankee that only hit 3 home runs, which it is what it is. But regardless, I think the MLB is in a good spot with this home run derby. They don't need to get rid of it like some people are saying. They don't need to wrap it up. They just need to make some tweaks like they've been doing in years past and keep it going, keep the ship going. And I think they have a really good product here. And, it's kind of in the dog days of summer when no other sports are going on. I mean, it feels like their only competition right now is WNBA and NBA Summer League. NFL training camp doesn't start for a couple more weeks, and that's still a little lackluster. So, the MLB right now is, I think the vibes are high. This season's very entertaining. You have close divisions. You have some teams that, aren't necessarily proven winners, like, the Tigers. They're crushing their division right now, but they've had a couple of years where it's been a little lackluster for them, so to see them have success, right? For me, obviously, I'm going to talk about the NL Central. That division has gotten way crazier as we hit this midpoint in the season, right? You'd think a couple weeks ago the Cubs were running away with it, but now the Brewers are, I think, a game and a half back, right? So you have multiple divisions across the league that are closer than you think. So it's going to be an exciting second half to the season. I don't necessarily cover it here because I'm not too much of a baseball snob. There's not much more that I know than you to kind of preach to you about, but this was just my thoughts on this home run derby and another successful event for the MLB, and I'm excited to see how the rest of the season ends. But now, let's transition. Let's transition into our second talking point, which is the worst poster I've ever seen. Now, if you don't know what I'm talking about, last night in the Summer League, I didn't watch this game, right? It was the Bulls. Let me look up. No, Essengay. I don't think that's how you say it. That's how you're being pronounced. But he got absolutely obliterated. on a poster, right? The Bulls were playing the Pacers last night in Summer League, and Johnny Firmphy, Furphy, drove to the hoop and dunked on Bulls' first-round pick, Noah Essingay, and it may have been, let me switch it for the people watching on YouTube, this may be the worst thing I've ever seen. I mean, just look at that. That is brutal. And for my audio listeners, he's pretty much getting dunked on his back, and his eyes are like all the way cocked back, mouth wide open. It's a very like, oh no, you do not want to look like that if you're an NBA player. And it's kind of sad because this guy's a rookie, right? And he actually had a pretty good game. I think he scored around 21 points, an efficient night, but yet now he has this following around him, and he'll have this following around him for a while, because it's truly a debacle. I sent it to my friend Nick last night, and I was just like, this your rookie? This your rookie? And he was like, oh, I didn't even know that happened. Yeah, it's bad, and it's gone viral. As you can see in this post alone, it has almost 80,000 likes, almost 7.3 million views, and that's just on a Bleacher Report tweet. The Indiana Pacers tweet has 4.2 million views. Then you have another guy saying, "I fear Noah Essingay will never recover from this." And NBA Central's posted about it, 290,000 views. Kobe White Muse said, "Noah Essingay is a meme for eternity now. His career hasn't even started." So, yeah, it's pretty bad. Hater Report says Noah Essingay is about to be the tallest DoorDash driver in the world's ever seen. Bro became a meme and ruined an entire segment of SportsCenter one night because the host couldn't stop laughing at him. Yeah, it was bad. This clip from SportsCenter is pretty bad. They just wouldn't stop laughing. You feel bad for the guy, but that's sports for you. It's the highs and the lows. Yeah, so that's all for Noah Essingay. If I'm pronouncing his name wrong, he got dunked on. He kind of deserves it. Regardless, moving on to the final talking point, I wanted to kind of preach on something that Francisco Lindor said last night during the All-Star Weekend media availability. And someone asked him, what keeps him motivated, or how's this motivation go throughout the season? And he says, "I'm not motivated. I'm disciplined. Motivation comes and goes." And someone by Bobby Wagner, I think that's the linebacker in the NFL, he said, "The most profound thing I've ever heard an athlete say in a long time," and he just says it casually at an All-Star game availability, LOL. That's true. But it's also like you look at that quote, and you can translate that to pretty much anything in life, right? It's not about are you going to wake up and be motivated? Are you going to be, are you going to wake up and be like, oh, I'm going to kill it at work today? Maybe not, but you're disciplined enough to get out of bed and get to work and get going. And, Francisco Lindor says it here. I mean, you look at it through the perspective of sports, 162 games, it's a long season, you're on the plane a lot, you're traveling pretty much across the country, especially for them, being in New York, being on the East Coast, they got to travel pretty much, far distances all the time just based off their location. And yet he's like, I'm not always motivated, but I'm disciplined. Motivation comes and goes. And I think that's just very profound. I think that's something that, could be a very good quote. I could see that on an Instagram caption. Just, I am motivated. I'm not motivated. I'm disciplined. Just like that too. Motivation comes and goes, right? Because discipline, it's not that discipline comes and goes. That's contradicting in a sentence. But motivation comes and goes. That's that's true, right? I feel like there's always times in our lives where we're thinking, oh, I'm really excited to do something, right? I'm motivated to do it. And there's other times I can kind of put this off, right? But it's always that fact of discipline that keeps us going closer to our goals. So not to get too philosophical to end this, get towards the end of today's show, but I just thought that was a very unique quote from Francisco Lindor. You don't get that too many times from athletes talking about just, kind of how their engine runs. And so from Francisco Lindor, I thought this was very prophetic. And his stock, in my mind, has climbed. He was a baller in Cleveland. Now he's a baller with the Mets. So shout out to him for making, some headlines, for just honestly being truthful. And you gotta just tip your cap to that saying. So I'm I'm very satisfied with that. But yeah, that'll bring it to a close for today's show. Just a quick one. I wanted to record something, get it posted for you guys. It is late, so if you're listening to this on Wednesday, before 11 Central AM, I'm live, or tune in when I'm live. But if you're watching this at any point, make sure to follow us on YouTube, All Jacked Up Sports. Same on Instagram. And also follow me on Twitter at AJU Sports. That's the most important thing. If you can follow me on Twitter, you'll get all the notifications and live feeds, live tweets, I should say, live posts from me. I tweeted during the home run derby last night about that kid robbing the home run. So if you want my reactions to stuff, go over to Twitter at AJU Sports. Anyways, thank you guys for tuning in to another episode. Have a good rest of your day.